So last but not least, we have the fine folks from Growlab, Tabea Glahs and Tabea Glahs and Mads Pålsrud. Growlab has been a professional crush of mine and of Nabolagshager for quite some time now. And we've had the great opportunity to actually work with them over this summer here in Oslo. Growlab is an experimental design studio focusing on creating more democratic and eco-centric cities through participatory design, urban and eco-activism, and public art and interventions. So I think we're going to hear about a project they did here in the center of Oslo to try to bring some light to the darkness. Is that accurate? I don't know. Yeah. I'll hand it over to Mads.
It's actually Tabea. Can you share your screen? Yeah. Well, thank you, Adam. It was a really nice introduction. I was preparing because we didn't really prepare this kind of presentation about us so much, but more about this project. And I was planning to have a brief presentation, and I made some notes here. And I think you kind of ticked all the boxes now with your little introduction there. So thank you. I think what is maybe important to say is that we work also a lot with others in our processes, with architects and landscape architects, artists, and social and natural scientists and researchers, and also farmers and teachers, etc. We love collaborations, and we love collaborating also with Nabolagshager. So looking forward to doing that even more. So now Tabea will present a little project that we did some years ago. Yeah.
Okay, I can just take over. Thank you, Mads, and thank you to everyone so far. It's been so inspiring to be here and listen to all of you. So I'm Tabea then, and I'm a partner at Growlab. And my background is in visual communication, but also in social design and service design. And yeah, today me and Mads, we took kind of quite an old project in a way with us, but it's still ongoing in many ways and still super relevant. And it's kind of how we started with going into the whole placemaking thing, I would say. Well, I mean, you also did a lot in your masters, but still this was kind of really important for us. So I will first just share a little bit about the background for this project, and then Mads will talk a little bit more about the winter placemaking aspect of it. So a couple of years ago, Mads and me, we started using our own neighborhood as kind of as a playground to investigate, develop, and test new tools and methods in a way for investigating the place, the neighborhood, and also for finding out how can we engage people in the issues of the neighborhood and in making the neighborhood. And I will just start showing you some photos now, if that works. Let's see. Yes. So here you can see this was the street where we had our office back then, Stuttgart. It's in the center of Oslo. It's quite a busy street. Back then there was the public transport that went through the street, and it was quite narrow, and the public transport would take a lot of space in a way. And then also you see here in the corner, there's kind of a crossing to a different street, and this corner is kind of the major meeting hub for drug addicts in Oslo. So the street has quite a lot of challenges in a way through this presence, because also way in the back, the yellow building that you see, there's a injection room for drug addicts, so they can go there and inject their drugs in a safe space. So that's also one of the reasons why there is so many of them there. And then I'm just going to give you the kind of a short glimpse of the process that we went through and some of the tools that we tested out, because I think it's kind of fun to see. Okay. So what we did is that we just tried a lot of different tools, as mentioned before, like for mapping out the space. What are like the street in a way that we focused on the Stuttgarter? What are the positive and the negative aspects here? Mapping out by taking pictures of the shoes of people, and there's a lot of you can learn by just looking at the shoes of people about cultural kind of diversity in a place. Mapping also out and the associations that people had with the street, like walking around with this big speech bubble and asking people to write down a word what the street is. But we also engage with the neighbors on a much deeper level, like in quality, in-depth interviews, where we kind of develop different probes on how to facilitate a conversation. You see here, like we ask what kind of animal is the street. We ask people to make a collage of how they see the street and how they would like to see it. And so it's like this. And then we went into a bit more like interventions where we were thinking about how can we contribute in positive ways to the street. So here you see we created a little bus where we invited people to come with us for a ride to show them kind of the positive aspects of the street, because a lot of people kind of felt it was negative. Like a lot of these associations were about like the drug users, the death and sorrow and stuff like that. But we also saw a lot of positive aspects there. And also we invited people in to create a flag for the street, because there was another thing that a lot of people felt the street lacked kind of some sort of identity. I don't think I have more pictures, no. So in this process, and these are just some of the projects, we did much more, but in the process, we started interacting a lot more with the drug users because they're just so present. Then we had very little interaction with them before. And this started kind of a new project for us where we were starting to think a bit more about who is public space for? And what kind of activities do we want to have in public space? And what kind of activities do we not want? And also, how can we advocate for a more inclusive public space? And this is in a way like now a starting point where we have like started to investigate more in how can we as creators, as designers, as architects, create more inclusive spaces in the city, and with especially a focus now on the issue of the drug users, because it creates so much tension in the spaces where they usually do. And it would be super interesting for us to hear if any one of you has experience with like working with this group. So please just get in touch with us, like either write us here or like you find also our website on the Facebook and stuff. So please get in touch. It would be really nice to exchange a bit more like best practice in a way, because like we have done quite a bit, but it is really difficult and tricky, and we continue kind of to try and do different kind of interventions to see what will happen. But yeah, it would be nice to learn from each other. And Mats will now show one thing that we did as part of kind of this debate and as a like kind of also as a winter placemaking thing. Mats, do you take over?
Yes. So as Tabea said, we discovered both the issue of the drug users in the street and also kind of got to know their kind of everyday a bit more, talking to them and engaging with them. And this flag workshop, for instance, like it was easier to sit down and chat with them because they they were kind of doing something creative, and we were able to kind of sit down with them for a longer time and have a conversation. But we also talked, as Tabea said, a lot to the neighbors in general, like in the shops, especially in the small shops that was kind of scared to suffer from gentrification. Like, this area is transforming a lot. And this guy that we talked to, he was kind of talking about that before the street was this really nice Christmas street. It was one of the main streets of Oslo before. Now it's kind of moved away from that. And he said, like, Storgata was filled with Christmas decorations, but now there's nothing left. And here you can see a picture from the street. I don't know exactly when this is, but probably in the 70s or something like that. So we were like discussing if we could do something meaningful during Christmas, in the midst of all this consumption and buying and all of that that happens in the city, urban spaces, but to do something more meaningful. And what we found out was that on the 13th of December that year, the numbers of the people who died from drugs the year before in Norway was released from the Public Health Institute. And in Norway, this number is quite high. It was 289 that year. So it's quite high per capita, like one of the largest in Europe, and also quite high in the world. So our approach was to create this like very spontaneous intervention to light candles for all of these people who died from drugs the year before. And we did that by lighting these candles in the street, one for each person. And we invited passersby to light a candle with us. So we created a little video from our interventions. So now I'm going to show that video. If you can stop sharing, Tabea, thank you. All right. Can you all see the video now? Yeah. Okay.
Vi tenner fakler for alle som døde av narkotika i 2016. Har du lyst til å tenne en fakkel? Har du lyst til å være med i bare 1 minutt og så tenne en fakkel? Ja? Ja, så hyggelig.
So this was a very special day, and it was we got these stories from people like this guy who had a friend who died that autumn, and this woman who had this kind of nice moment of remembering a relative that also died sometime before. And yeah. Yeah, it's always like very hard to kind of say something after this video, but as you saw, we are collaborating with another another studio here in Oslo called Makershub. They're also working similarly as us, and we have this project Embrace on Chase together, where we explore this this theme as Tabea introduced. And yeah, we welcome all contacts and also questions and feedback on this. And thank you so much for having us, and looking forward to the rest of the evening.
Thanks so much, Mads. I think we will take a little time for some questions. I think one of the big ones that I saw in here was, where do you guys get your inspiration from? Where do all of these great ideas come from? So I would like to open the floor up to Mads, Tabea, Eva, and Päivi. Maybe somebody can step in and tell us, how do you come up with these great ideas?
Shall I start, maybe? Well, actually, it's not our ideas, it's the ideas of the citizens. So we are just the ones supporting them. And yeah, I think it's great what ideas are around, and it's also great that the city is actually funding us to make these projects possible.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar for us in a way. Like, it's a lot about like listening to people, kind of, and you know, like there are so many ideas in them, and also like kind of just starting to talk to people, and then things come up. I feel like in conversations, just with others, like just like it doesn't have to be creative people, but can be, of course, as well.
Yeah, I think for us it's about sort of observing the city, observing how it's being used, what's lacking, what we would like to sort of bring in there. It's also quite political in a way. So lately we took part in a panel about social design, and I realized sort of activist side or background we both have is very much sort of present in our work. So yeah, looking at even the news feed in a way, like about COVID at the moment, the importance of public spaces. So there's lots of different channels. Of course, then we have the studio practice where we are developing ideas more like from an artistic point of view, but we always try to apply them to public space.
Maybe before we give everyone the opportunity to go into the breakout rooms, we can pose a question to all of our speakers, which once again, thanks to all our speakers tonight. What do you see as one of the biggest challenges or opportunities for placemaking as we now have COVID vaccines, and as our societies are starting to move out of lockdown and back into public spaces together? How can we harness that energy? What can we do to make sure that placemaking continues to flourish?
I have an answer for that. I think there's a lot of collective emotion right now. And I think that we need to share how we feel. And I think that stories are a really powerful organizing force, and sharing stories and creating new narratives through small acts of sharing will be a good way to kind of good cathartic exercise for overcoming this period of difficulty for everyone. It's kind of connected humanity in a way. We've all gone through this thing. We all have something in common now.
I actually also think that COVID-19 actually helps to spread the idea of placemaking, because there are so many more parts of society that are now using public space, because meeting inside is kind of dangerous. And I actually think that we're at some kind of momentum which we should all use to push it further.
I disagree. I understand what you mean to an extent, but I think too many people took move content immediately to online, and particularly I'm talking within maybe art establishment in Norway. The default reaction was to shift their content from inside to online rather than inside to outside, and I think that not that I didn't mean to say that I disagree with your point, but just that a lot of the default action that I've seen is to shift online, and I think we have a lot of work to do to ensure that that we continue to use public space kind of effectively.
I think it goes a bit both ways, doesn't it? I mean, I agree with Eva. I feel personally very much that a lot of people now have been forced to really deal with their localities. You couldn't travel in summer very far. You kind of had to. I know so many people here in my neighborhood the kids. I have 2 children, and they this summer there were so many children in the backyard that usually go to Spain or go to their wherever, other places. So I feel like there is a different sense in a way for your neighborhoods, and I think that is kind of positive for the placemaking. But I also agree, yeah, of course, a lot of things have gone digital, but it can also be a bit more okay, maybe also the placemaking now see a bit more the potential in the digital world, how can we use that and connect more internationally and kind of learn more from each other on an international platform. So I think it's kind of, yeah, positive in a way also, the digital aspect.
Great, thanks so much, everyone. Thanks especially to our speakers tonight. I want to send a big thank you out to Mads and Tabea, who helped us organize this event, and to Clara Reich, who works with us here at Nabolagshager.